Boom. Here we are. I think. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Wednesday, September 27th, if I am correct, 2023. And this is the weekly, missed last week, but the weekly live stream on the C47 channel. My name is Jem Schofield. Thanks for being here. And hello to anybody who's here, including Thaddeus. And thank you for sending that link over to me. I'm going to get rid of this window and put it over here, which is my reference window. So here we are. Hopefully some people will show up, and then I can do some housekeeping, and we can have a little bit of chat about what I've been working on, what you've been working on, and just sort of a catch up, and of course an open forum for any questions related to producing, production, etc. Guy, how's it going? Good to see you, and great chatting the other day. Thaddeus, I got about 3/4 of the way through before I got pulled into something. The only comment I have, because I know you're picture locked, is just mixing dialogue a little bit higher in the mix or bring the music down. I was watching it on the phone, and some of the intro stuff, especially before we got to the historical footage, it was a little bit hard to hear in the skee ball alley. So that's it. There's just live feedback there, and it's a really cool doc so far, and I think it's going to be really, really interesting. And other than that, I was just kind of hoping it opened with the historical stuff, because that's what drew me in, the roller coaster ride and that kind of stuff. That's when I really started to kind of get drawn in. But yeah, there you go. That's it. Guy, I hope you're doing well. Hope everybody else is well. Please chime in the chat, and I will tell you that the last couple of days has been kicking my ass, and I say that because I'm going down the rabbit hole of the iPhone 15 Pro. But yes, we can, Brandon. We can start now that you're here. And I'm going down this rabbit hole with the iPhone 15 Pro because I did some tests yesterday. Well, it's really the day before, but with the front-facing camera, and then I started to check out Apple Log, and what's up, gee whiz? And let me tell you, it's a rabbit hole, and it's a rabbit hole because they've added this log recording. Obviously, Filmic Pro had their version prior to this, but we have Apple Log now officially in the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, and that can now be accessed not only in NLEs like DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, but it can also be a capture, which is obviously the whole point, a capture workflow in Apple's camera app, but also things like Blackmagic Camera. So what I did yesterday, and you can see that in the episode that posted today, which is this sort of comparison between the selfie front-facing cameras on the iPhone 13 and iPhone 15 Pro. And if you haven't seen that episode, check it out, because there's definitely some comparisons between two seemingly the same cameras. They're both 12 megapixels, so on and so forth, that are definitely producing different results. But then what I decided to do is I decided to try the log feature. And it was kind of a pain in the ass because I had downloaded Blackmagic Camera. First I tried it in the Apple Camera app. And what you need to do is, if you're in something like Final Cut Pro, you just update it, and then the LUT is available to you when you bring the footage in. I definitely wasn't very happy with that, and you can see the back-to-back. You'll see log, exposed correctly. And I'm doing a lot of tests now. And then I tried applying 3 different LUTs. Apple's log LUT, which to my knowledge is just converting it to a 709, though the white paper doesn't answer that. I tried an RE LUT, and then I also tried a Fuji LUT. The LUT from Fuji I actually kind of liked the most in terms of the way it transformed the original log footage. Not necessarily in terms of color, but just in terms of what it was doing to that log footage. And then so that episode went out, and then today I came in here and I got myself into a big mess. I was like, okay, so I need some more control. So I fired up the Blackmagic camera app. I couldn't access log recording. I downloaded it day one, and the only way I could get it off of the App Store was I went to Blackmagic's website, because if you typed in Blackmagic camera, it didn't show up. I got a direct link. I downloaded it. It clearly updated it to the new version. Couldn't figure out why log wasn't there as an option for capture, and wound up deleting the app, re-downloading it, and voila, it showed up. So I started doing tests, and I got to tell you, there's some weird stuff going on. It's definitely recording in log, and you can definitely apply a LUT in Blackmagic camera, which is part of what I wanted to cover, but it's just too deep of a rabbit hole. I've got to figure some things out so I can clearly and concisely recommend a workflow. And basically what's happening, and hey everybody, I'm just kind of babbling here for a second. What's happening is you can choose shutter speed or shutter angle in Blackmagic camera. That's fantastic. You can lock that once you've set it up. So 180-degree shutter, or if you're shooting at 24, if you want to be shutter speed at 48th. And then you can go in and you can lock white balance, or you can just let it auto white balance. And then when you press record, it will lock it at that point. Pretty cool. Inconsistent results in same lighting, I kind of found, but that's, what's going on. And then ISO kooky brains. I was finding that at a 180-degree shutter, that in order to get a correct exposure with lighting similar to my episode today, I had to set the ISO at about 75 to 125, which makes no sense whatsoever when it comes to thinking about tiny sensors and how much light needs to come in and how you rate that sensitivity. So there seems to be no correlation between the ISO readings in something like Blackmagic camera and what you would find in the mirrorless or DSLR or digital cinema camera. So that is wonky to me. And then in order to use a LUT when you're recording in log, you have to load a LUT. So it's not just apply LUT, you have to go and find a LUT. So I found somewhere on Reddit or somewhere else a link to Apple's website where you have to log in as a developer, and you could then download a white paper about log, which didn't really answer the questions I needed to have answered. And then you could download 2 different LUTs. One was basically a log to 709, and one was a log to linear. Don't use the log to linear. But the log to 709, oddly enough, when you loaded it into Blackmagic camera, kind of looked great. I got some decent results. But it's a completely, seemingly, at least seemingly, a completely different LUT than the one that's in Final Cut Pro once you update the app. So there's an Apple log LUT, and then if you download Apple's log to 709 LUT, the difference you get in the timeline is considerable. So that's what I mean. I apologize for babbling, but it's a rabbit hole right now, and it doesn't really make sense. I'm hoping that myself and other people start to figure this out, so it's not just a Final Cut Pro workflow, but what is the recommended workflow if you're working with Apple Log in terms of a viewing LUT, which means when you're looking at it on your device, a camera system, a monitor, and also basically taking that and getting a predictable result if you're starting with the LUT in a timeline. That's what I got for you. All right, let me see what we got here. All right, so Ono Coffee's coming in with a question for everybody. Let's see what we got. Ono says, my most exciting gear is new wall-mounted boom arm to fly an overhead camera. Cool. Yeah, tell us about the brand and all that. It's a lot of LUT. A LUT glut. Exactly, gee whiz. So I'm just going bonkers. So I wanted to have a nice little tight episode of the Daily Drop for tomorrow about, starting to use log and Blackmagic camera, and that's not going to happen. So I'll shoot something entirely different after the live stream. So there's something up there, and hopefully when I get in tomorrow, I'll be able to figure a little bit more of this stuff out. No promises, but I'll get there in the end. All right, Brandon says, just approval to do some shopping. Oh, got approval. I know what that means. I think. Maybe. I don't. Purchase an A7S III and FX3. Wow, okay. Besides the G70, 70-200 and Sigma 25. Any other lens recommendations? Chat. I mean, if you can shoot Super 35 in both of those cameras, I believe, for sure in the FX3. Hey, David. And I really love the little Sigma 18-50. Caleb told me about it originally, and I've been using it with the FX30. It is a crop sensor lens, so you're not going to be able to use it full frame. So I will say that you need to be aware of that. But it's tiny, and if you want to shoot in Super 35, it's great. That's not really... So hold on, I'm going to rewind here. That's not a great option for the FX3 because the FX3 megapixels, once you switch over to Super 35, you're essentially, I believe, locked into an HD resolution. So I can't really recommend that lens for you then. But if you are going crop sensor with something like an A7C2, or you're using the ZVE1, or of course the FX30, then that lens is fantastic. All right, what we got? Other people making recommendations for lenses, so that's great. And yeah, another fun one might be to pick up a Laowa lens, not necessarily AF, but that little 9. Well, it would be the 12 millimeter 0D if you're using it on the two cameras you're looking at. And there you go. And Ono's asking, curious what lens are you using? Well, I'm using the Sigma 18-50, the contemporary, DC-DN. And I'm using the FX30, which I have on loan. It's going back next week, but I do have an A7C2 coming in, and I really want to put that through its paces. I'm very curious about that because if I don't experience overheating problems, it sort of kills two birds with one stone because it's full frame, but it will shoot in Super 35. I've been working with this FX30 now for about a month and have a pretty good sense of what it's capable of. Of course, it has a built-in fan, so there's no overheating issues with this camera. I'm not using the camera for client work. It's really for the Daily Drop and for things like this. So I can say that the AF system is rock solid in terms of Sony. And the only time you run into a problem is if you inadvertently activate the tracking feature, and then you walk over and things are out of focus. So you just have to watch out for that. But the AF system is so reliable for things like this. It's great. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't think I'm going to miss dual card slots with the FX30. I might miss the fan and the fact that there's no overheating. I do like the body style of the FX30, FX3 in a mirrorless camera. But I'll let you know how things go with that. So there you go. Ona says, I have continuing frustration using The Mikey EF to E adapter on my FX30. Got it for the drop-in filter, but communication is worthless. Yeah, time to go to EA glass. I mean, native glass really, there's very few exceptions where you're going to get comparable performance by going non-native. It occasionally happens. Canon is really the exception, but they're really the ones also making the solution, right? They went to RF, but you can do EF to RF mount, and you're getting the same type of performance out of those EF lenses. But that's an exception. All right. I don't know. There we go. Okay, good. So what else do we have? What else do we want to talk about? Oh, now that we have a few people here, a little housekeeping. Believe it or not, next Wednesday, which is October 4th, is the next episode of Camera Flask. So next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific, myself, Ben Barden, Caleb Pike. But just as important as that is the fact that that is the eBay Digital Cinema Camera Challenge. So if you go to the live tab on my channel, it's been up there for almost a month. There is a description of what the challenge is and what you're supposed to do. You need to go to eBay. You need to find your camera kit. You got 20 grand. All the rules and everything are there, and also the email address to submit your PDF document with your stuff. Quite honestly, the deadline's coming up. You got to hurry up. You do have a Camera Flask challenge, and that's what I'm talking about. I guess a little bit of a delay in terms of the chat. It's next Wednesday, and you can't send me stuff on Tuesday morning or something, especially with the daily drop now. So I put a deadline up on the site. I think it's this Friday, but it might be Monday morning. I need a little bit of time to cull all that stuff together and drop it into Ecamm and make sure that everything's copacetic. So there you go. That's housekeeping number one. Next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific, Camera Flask, and it is the eBay camera challenge. So go check that out after the show and do that. Ono saw an F65 for sale for $7,500 last week. Interesting. All right. Well, it should be fun. I haven't done mine yet. I'm going to have to hunker down and spend an hour or two kind of figuring out what my kit is and get as close to that 20 grand as possible to get the most out of that. We're really, primarily looking at camera body, lenses, something that you're going to be shooting on. Something that's you're going to take out of the bag and you're going to be able to shoot with. So the description's there. Check it out. Please submit your stuff. It's no fun if it's just me, Caleb, and Ben. And speaking of no fun, first of all, an acknowledgement to anybody who's watching the Daily Drop and are dropping comments and interacting. But on episodes where I'm not getting comments, that's the no fun part, because the whole point of doing it is to share information. Not every episode is going to be relevant to everybody, and that I totally understand. Not every episode's going to get the same number of views, the same amount of interaction. But what really makes it work is, just like with the live streams, when there's open communication and there's a dialogue, and the little tip is, I don't speak incredibly quickly when I'm doing this type of stuff. Sometimes in the real world, I speak a little bit faster, but a 1.5x speed usually gets you through the episode with total understanding of what I'm talking about. And occasionally you'll have to pause if you're taking a look at a reference image or comparison, so on and so forth. But there you have it. All right. So I think that's pretty much the housekeeping part of it. Not much else I can think about in regards to that. Writer's strike looks like it's over as of today, so they still have some paperwork, some admin to get done, and now all eyes and ears are on the SAG-AFTRA strike, and not the video game portion of it, which they kicked up and started for performers this week, but really the agreement with the studios. So there you go. Food episode. What are we talking about? Oh, yes, taking care of your crew. Thank you, Thaddeus. I appreciate it. Definitely, I take that to heart, and it is a very important thing for me as a producer. But it's also important for me when I'm on the other side of that, when I am just being hired as crew. And I did reply, I think, to you, Thaddeus, that it's amazing to me how unimportant providing good craft services and meals to your crew is to certain producers and production companies. And I just think there is this complete disconnect in terms of how important that is to the morale of the people that are working on a production. And while it is very, very important for everyone to, let me make sure that my computer is muted. Oh, maybe that doesn't work. Maybe I can't mute it. That's a good question. If I mute this, hold on, I'm going to do a test here. I'm going to mute, okay? And I want you to tell me if you can still hear me. I don't know why I don't know this. Let's see. It says that I still have levels. Tell me if I still have levels. Do I still have levels? Yes, do I have levels? Do I not? Have I gone silent? Please tell me, because I'm trying to make sure I'm not getting these stupid notifications. I know there's a slight delay, so I'll have to wait for a second to get that. Yeah, come on. And then I'll get into the answers because I need to know. I also realized that my Wi-Fi is on, but I think we're okay because I've been airdropping. Still good. All right. Thanks, Harrison. Good to see you, by the way. So, let's see. Let's go. And speaking of food, what's Jem got cooking lately? Whew, I don't know. I mean, we're kind of at the end of the tomato season, so we're going to try to pick up some more of that. We've been doing this dish in a cast iron skillet where essentially you just you roast with garlic, thyme, rosemary, and olive oil the tomatoes in a cast iron pan in the oven. Let it cook down to just pure delicious goodness. And then you take that out and while it's still warm, you break up burrata on top of those roasted tomatoes. And then you just, warm up a good like potato loaf or baguettes, and you just tear that off and you just go to town. So we're going to make that on Friday night for a thing that we're going to. Bill, good to see you. So there you go. And thank you, Ono, for that. So, yeah. So what are we talking about? Let's get some other questions up and, do we hear any announcements? But hopefully the SAG-AFTRA thing gets handled. The industry's hurting. I think the studios have saved their money that they needed to save, if that was part of the purpose. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Let's see what we got. Any other topics that we want to bring up? Ono's up to his neck in tomatoes. There have been a lot of tarte Provence and galettes this past week. Ooh, very nice. Yeah, David says I get fed pizza a lot on shoots, unfortunately. And that is unfortunate. And I said it in the episode that I did. Pizza's great. It's one of my favorite foods. And it's an amazing thing to eat. In fact, I had pizza last night. I don't hate pizza, but it's wrap food. It's not fuel. It's not the stuff that's going to keep you going, and it's not going to keep a crew happy for the duration. So very carby, very delicious, sitting down at a nice, place that's making pizza, and you have some salad and you have some appetizers, and maybe you have an arancini, and then you have a little salad and you have a nice pizza. That's fantastic. Let's do that. But on set, it's just no bueno. And Panera Bread's fine. Just don't do Panera Bread 2, 3, 4 times in a row. Let's get Panera Bread, and then let's get something else catered, and so on and so forth. Ono says, if SAG gets wrapped up soon, we're only a couple of months behind for the network TV season. They should be able to get up and running with new episodes by the end of the year. Yeah, we're kind of on the edge right now when it comes to the strikes ending, because if it takes much longer, then we start to get into, into October and then into November. And then it becomes really dicey because you've got Thanksgiving hitting towards the end of November, and then we go right into the holidays, and that tends to be the slowdown period. But if we can get them, this stuff sorted out in the next week or so, then we can get some production done. Otherwise, I think it's going to be in January. So let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Everybody needs to get back to work. Everybody needs to support themselves, their families, all of the things that they have in terms of expenses. And is rough out there right now, kids, if you're in that space, and a lot of my friends are. So I'm hoping this thing gets resolved. All right, enough of that. Stop feeding people pizza if you're a producer or production company. If you want to give people some beer and pizza at the end when everybody's kind of wrapping their gear, okay, that's totally fine. But on set, feed well and don't skimp on the crafty. It's very, very important when it comes to the morale of your production. All right, let's get another topic going. What do we want to talk about? Release wise, we've got the little Mini 4 Pro from DJI. Looks like a pretty significant upgrade from the Mini 3 Pro, which I have. The 360 obstacle, whatever detection is a big one. And then it looks like there's some features in terms of just in terms of being able to set destinations or points, and that's that's the whole thing. All right. Yeah. So yeah, that's a tough one though. I see your comment to David, and the unions they're important, and that structure there is very very, very important. But there's a lot of non-union work out there as well, and it's a balance. And then you also have to factor in that a lot of people are doing stuff that's not union based from the standpoint of corporate production and everything else. So it's a mix out there. Yeah, the creator's coming out, and that was shot on the FX3, so it'll be great to see what that's all about. We've got some stuff that's starting to drop in terms of television that was obviously shot before. What is it? The Killings of the Flower Moon. Am I saying the title correctly? I'm interested in that. Scorsese's new movie looks pretty awesome. And I'm sure there'll be some other surprises that come out in the near future. But there you go. All right. What are we going to talk about? What's next on the agenda with our 8 people that are here? Most of you are talking in the chat anyway, so let's get a topic going. Not sure we're going for a full hour today, depending on how this goes, and I have to get an episode which I thought would have already been shot for the Daily Drop done right after this, and I do have an appointment that I have to get to, so it's going to be a quick one, I think. In terms of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to have to dig into this rabbit hole of this whole log workflow with the iPhone 15 Pro some more. Hope that gets in this week, but it might be a next week thing. And then we'll kind of see what we have. Sudden Break Films, good to see you. Welcome. And if you have something that you want to talk about, a topic, just put an @theC47 beforehand. And everybody, don't forget the challenge is coming up next week on Camera and Flask. What's everybody been working on? What do you have in terms of questions? Are you trying to sort out, we've had some lens questions here for E-mount cameras, but do we have any other questions that people have when it comes to gear or prepping for production or anything like that, it would be great to hear from you in terms of that. I'm hoping to jump into the the ideas behind virtual production some more. I've been looking at runway again and things like that, and just seeing what's possible. And I like to check in every once in a while to that space, not on the high end, but just sort of things that we can do and can implement. I am frustrated with the 15 Pro in the sense that um, cinematic mode is something that you can access in the camera app, but that app is it's pretty crippled in terms of what you can do. And you look at Black Magic Cinema and you see what the possibilities are, and that's great, but I wish that they could tap into an API, SDK, whatever it is, that allows them to integrate that cinematic mode into their capture, because it's much, much better in terms of being able to use Blackmagic Camera than it is the camera app. Camera app is okay, but you're leaving a lot to the app to make decisions for you in terms of the lack of manual control, shutter speed and ISO being the two main ones. Ono says, how is the daily drop doing for you in terms of being able to produce content daily, and what impact you're seeing on your channel? It's doing well for me. I mean, I don't mean from a financial standpoint, because that's not that's not a thing with it. Maybe it will be one day. I'm not sure, but the um the producing content daily is kind of reminds me of when I did Gearbox a long time ago. You commit to it and it happens. You do what you have to do to make it happen. So sometimes that's wrapping stuff really late at night. Sometimes it's getting it done in the morning. Sometimes it's trying, though usually unsuccessfully, to do more than one episode ahead of time. I did do that last week. I made sure that the way I did my production for the daily drop, that by the time I my crew came in for the production I was doing last Thursday, because we had a pre-production pre-light day on Wednesday last week for this small commercial spot, and then we shot all day Thursday. So I made sure that I had uh, all of those episodes. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday were already in the can and ready to go. Before that happened. So I did have to be ahead of it for that. And I didn't really have a choice, because I'm not wired in the way that some people are, where they can just say, okay, I just, did a pre-light. I'm just going to go ahead and go and work on that daily drop, or whatever the equivalent is to that. So for me, it just doesn't work. I'm in the production, and that's where all of my attention is. That's where I'm invested, and I can't really change that. So that's just not an option for me. So this week's a little bit different. This week I don't have a specific production. I'm doing planning for other projects and things like that, but I have a lot more time this week to dedicate to not necessarily just shooting a daily drop, but just spend time figuring things out. So that's why I'm able to go down a rabbit hole. Um, Subscribers are definitely going up, but this is a very different time than it used to be. And so, it's oceans large when it comes to how big YouTube is now. So you see subscribers go up, a couple drop off, it goes up, a couple drop off. So it's a slow crawl in terms of that. Um, but I am connecting with a lot of people I haven't connected with in a long time. And that's not just in the comment section, because what I do is I push out, usually, not always, um, some sort of little video, vertical video, to most of the social platforms to promote that there's a new episode. I have noticed on days that I don't do that, that the viewership goes down, but it's hard to tell right now if that's because of that or if it's because of the content. When I'm talking about hex keys and Allen wrenches, I don't expect to get the same amount of views as when I'm talking about my thoughts on an iPhone 15 Pro. And I'm not going to get thousands of people right now, but that's okay with me. I like this process. I like, spending the time doing this, and it's really allowing me to do, kind of what I do anyway, but even more so, which is figure things out, come up with workflows, and just kind of do all of that stuff, and then hopefully share some information that's useful. So Sudden Break says, "What's the software platform? What's the software or platform do you use for remote directing your projects?" It is primarily Zoom for me, but it's also Zoom using a particular setup where I have my laptop over here. I have a teleprompter setup, which I've shown on episodes before, in front of me. And that's where my main camera system is, and my audio is running to that. And I'm not using the teleprompter for anything but interacting with clients and talent and things like that. And then I have another larger monitor over here, which is where I'm seeing your comments and reactions right now. And I've shown that on episodes. The one where I talk about bouncing light and sound blankets recently, you can sort of see some of that. And that kind of setup allows me to have enough screens and enough things that when I'm looking at a feed from the studio and I'm also talking to talent or to the client, I have enough to do that with. And Zoom allows me to do that. So there's really not much else that's needed. Plus, I can share files over Zoom. Um, there's obviously a chat feature in there, and it seems to be, for me, about the best platform. Every time I'm, invited to a Teams or what used to be Blue Jeans, I think that went away, and some of those other platforms, I just find that they don't have as many features as Zoom does that seem to work well for that type of workflow. Long answer. Sorry about that. Harrison says, just wrapped up doing a live show for Panasonic AW UE150s. We have had trouble with audio. The Blackmagic Pro Studio. I don't totally get that. So have you had trouble with audio with the Blackmagic cameras? Which I wouldn't totally be surprised about. I know the A10 Mini is not exactly a rock star. I mean, I'm feeding all of my audio through the A10 Mini Pro over HDMI. And anytime I try to plug something in through the 3.5 millimeter 1/8" jack, it's no bueno. I don't have a great track record with that. So, yeah, I don't know. Give me some more information, Harrison, on that. I'd be interested to hear about it. What else we got? Let's see. Any other questions that you have about my workflows, things that you're trying to figure out? That's kind of what the live stream is about. We can discuss, episodes of the Daily Drop and things that I've covered, and we can go deeper into those subject matter if you want. Again, producing, production, so on and so forth. Or just general questions having to do with workflow. You've got a production that's coming up and you're trying to figure something out. That's kind of what the, usually 3 episodes or 3 live streams a month are all about. And then Camera Flask has a little bit of a different flavor because it's the 3 of us. And, we're kind of covering stuff differently, and you're hearing from 3 different voices. So it was the Studio Pro that the audio kept dying on. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. So anything else that we want to cover? I'm totally game. We can go the whole hour, or we don't have to. But I kind of put this whole time every week aside. Last week, I apologize, by the way. I had rescheduled the live stream for Tuesday and was prepping the day before the pre-light. So much equipment that it completely just, even the alarms didn't register. I had so many going, I probably just missed something. I don't know what happened. But 4 o'clock rolled around and I was like, oops, I messed up on that one, because if it was on a Wednesday, I would not have forgotten about it. Blackmagic Design A10 Television Studio Pro 4K. makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I know that there aren't really generally problems with audio with the pocket cinema cameras and the larger shoulder mounted cameras that they have, but these switchers and things like that, I don't know. Maybe it's just we had a bad run of ATEM Mini Pros. We had two bad ones when it came to the HDMI inputs for a client. We bought one online, and then um, we were plugging into the inputs and we couldn't get them all to work. And then we went to Film Tools and picked up another one, and we had a very similar problem. My guess is it was just a bad run. It was a lemon run. And, because I haven't seen that problem before or since, but I do know other people who have problems with the 3.5 millimeter input on those if they're trying to run audio directly into the ATEM Mini or ATEM Mini Pro. But what's the deal? You just keep moving forward, figure it out, and they're going to keep updating and creating new products. And yes, we all wish they all worked perfectly, but in this age of consumerism, it's just not the way it goes. All right, what else we got? Come on, let's go. I'm ready. Any other announcements that anybody saw in terms of equipment? Again, the Mini Pro, the little under 249 or the 249 gram drone. So I think that's, competitive and will allow people to do a lot of stuff. And then are there any other big announcements that we know about? Nothing huge in the lighting world that I'm aware of. Nothing since the last episode that I can think of that has to do with cameras, because I think we pretty much talked about the IBC related stuff. And if you go to News Shooter and Cine D, you can see all of those announcements and the things that rolled out at those shows. Um, we may or may not have. We probably talked about the new Blackmagic 6K camera. Ergonomics still essentially the same, but compatible with previous accessories and things like that. Nice that they're going full frame and L mount. And we were talking about that last time. Maybe we haven't talked about it on the live stream, but I think they're going in the right direction, but they're not trying to compete with with Sony and Canon at this point. And it's kind of interesting to see where they're going and what they're doing, but kind of interesting overall. We shot with Komodo last week for the commercial spot. I liked the way the footage looked, but it was in the hands of a owner operator cinematographer who knows what they're doing, so that worked out. NAB New York, not as far as I know. I usually do actually teach with workshops connected to that show, but I don't think we're going to do it this year. Last year we had plans to do it, and the runway was very short in terms of promoting it, but securing a space for on-site workshops is difficult and very expensive in New York. So we'll see. I'm still waiting to hear if there's a last minute. Maybe I'll do some workshops or sessions in the convention center, but at the moment, I'm not planning to go. And then prior to that, October 6th and 7th is Cine Gear in Atlanta. So you've got two shows coming up. Very different shows, but that's all I got for you. Cool on that new mic from Shure. I don't know much about it, the SM7DB, but tell me a little bit about it. GWiz 5150, I work with a live show that has 3 projector screens. I use 3 HyperDecks with a Stream Deck. Anyone have any suggestions? Any other suggestions? I don't want 3 laptops, which is what the band had previously. Oh, gotcha. I don't know. I think, we're going to have to see how that space progresses over time. it's not really my world. I'm using a switcher for stuff like this and to create educational content. So I'm not in the trenches. One recommendation I would say GWiz 5150 is Alex Lindsay has something that he runs called office hours. Just look it up. It's every day, literally every day. Not my Monday through Friday. I believe that they consistently also do Saturday and Sunday, and it is every day. It's early in the morning, and it is a fantastic resource for people who are in production. Very different than the content that is created by a lot of other places, and it's live. And so you can either participate in and be a part of office hours if you have the right setup, and I think you can still do that, um, or you can just watch. And I think it might be worthwhile you checking out office hours with Alex Lindsay. Guy Cochran, who was here earlier on in the stream, has been a big part of it as well. And it's just a great resource. And a lot of the people who are connected to office hours are connected to live production. So they have a lot to do with producing events and live productions, live streams, a lot of switcher experience and things like that. So it may be a place that you want to hang out and just be an observer of for a while and see if you can glean some good knowledge. And I believe all of those prior episodes are archived, so you can go back and actually watch those episodes, looking at the titles and the information they're covering, and you might be able to get some good feedback. And it's, again, very interactive. So I would check out office hours. I think that might be a good resource for you. Harrison, it might be good for you as a resource as well, if you're not aware of it. And that's what I got for you. Yeah. All right. Anything else that we want to talk about in the last 10 to 15 minutes? Just put an at theC47 here, and I'm happy to jump in. Give it a minute or two, and then I'll sort of do a wrap up, or we'll jump into some more questions and we'll let that go for a little while longer. While we're waiting, I just want to say that if you know production people who are interested in learning like nuts and bolts stuff, not the sexy stuff, but just how to get stuff done, tell them about the Daily Drop and have them check it out. And Guy's still here, which is great. And I know Guy is connected. Guy, if you wouldn't mind chiming in and just letting everybody know here where the best place to find office hours is. What's the best place if you're just checking it out as sort of an observer initially? And then, what's the best place to go if you want to both watch and also interact? You want to have something to do with being able to ask questions in real time. Not necessarily be a moderator or on screen, but it would be interesting to, to find out sort of where the best places are for that. And also, what's the protocol? What are the guidelines? When I first started getting involved with office hours, I was kind of OG, with Guy and some other people, um, George Kennedy Jr., some other people who, kind of this pandemic time. So, you wake up 6 in the morning, this thing fires off. I think it's 7 a.m. I believe. I might be wrong about that. I think it's 7 a.m. But we have a ramp up, or used to, where, that first hour prior to showtime was just sort of, sound checks, picture, sound, and getting everything, sorted out. And I was part of that for a while. And then as business started to pick up, which does happen, it was impossible for me to do that because I had a client in LA. We would do early calls, a lot of remote directing and production, and that sort of fell off in terms of that. But it's Alex and the team have kept that going, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. And they're even doing coverage now at shows like NAB. I think they did IBC. And Guy, if you can just kind of even just point people in the direction of should they go YouTube first, or is there a better way? Is there a URL for office hours they should go to find out about the show and to figure out all that stuff would be great before we wrap up. Anything else? What we got? Yeah, I'm going to do a quick episode here. It's not going to be sexy for the daily drop, but I think it's important. Anytime I can expose people to, uh, kit and equipment that they should be thinking about having that are sort of essentials, then I think that's important. So I'm going to do a small one here. I have some stuff laid out here on the table. Speaking of, we were talking about lenses. This is kind of related to that. It'll be one of my shorter episodes. Not trying to get too commercial spots or ads in there in that 8+ minute guideline that YouTube has. Crazy stuff, that platform, those algorithms. Who knows what they are? Who cares? Just kind of keep plugging away. Be passionate about the content you're creating, and that's the most important thing. Hopefully we'll hear from Guy on just sort of where to go. And I'm just going to start the wrap up here with the Lucky 13. Next week, Camera Flask, 3 p.m. Pacific, myself, Ben Barden, and Caleb Pike. We have the eBay Cinema Camera Challenge, and that information is right here on this site. If you just click on live on the C47's channel, you will see the episode as already posted with the guidelines for that. Yeah, don't flake out, yourself included, Brandon. I expect people to put together a little camera package. Pretty easy. All you're going to do is go into eBay, follow the guidelines, start taking screenshots, and put together a 16:9 PDF document. It can be multi-page. First page, your name, if you want to put your URL or any of that stuff. Any information there is great. And then basically you're sharing. And however you want to present that, keep it to, less than 8 pages on the PDF if you want to do like one page, or you can just sort of take a look at the cart and we can talk about it. Guy says, yeah, I'd watch on YouTube, and then you can scan the QR code to ask questions if you want to join the panel. Best way is to watch and join the Discord group. Lots of good info every day and friendly folks. Yeah, there you go. We got that answer. We know what's happening next week. Don't flake out. Let's get some submissions in. At least a half a dozen beyond the 3 of us. I got to get my acting gear as well. Is that right? Is that the way you say it? I think so. All right, kids. I call you kids because most of you are younger than me. I think. Probably. I know so. Some of you aren't, but most of you are. All right, I got to click the finish button down here if I can find it with my poor old eyes. Appreciate everybody coming to the live stream and also watching the content daily. Tell people about it. Interact some more. More comments is better. Brandon, you are a rock star when it comes to comments on the Daily Drop, I have to say. It motivates when I get comments that people are learning about things or they have questions about things, they want to clarify things. All of that stuff is good. I don't know what 32 means, but 32 comments, age, whatever it is, I'm happy about it. If you are 32, then I remember those years, kids. All right, all the best. I'll see you on the next Daily Drop. See you on next week's Camera Flask, and I appreciate all of your support. Take care. Bye.